The AH-64 Apache helicopter is one of the most advanced weapons systems in the world. It is not a transport helicopter. It is not a cargo helicopter. An Apache is a flying tank. It is designed for one purpose: to destroy enemy targets with overwhelming firepower and precision. The Apache is operated by two people. The pilot sits in the back seat and controls the overall flight of the aircraft. The gunner sits in the front seat and operates the weapons systems. The Apache has a chain gun that fires 3,000 rounds per minute. It has Hellfire missiles that can hit targets from miles away. It has rockets and other weapons that can bring enormous destruction. An Apache is a machine of war. And it is incredibly complicated. At Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, there is a maintenance facility where Army helicopters are serviced and repaired. Mechanics and technicians work there. Engineers work there. People who understand these machines better than almost anyone else in the world work there. 3 days ago, an Apache had arrived at Fort Bliss with a serious problem. The helicopter had been in combat operations in the Middle East. It had completed 200 combat missions. 200. That number is extraordinary. Most combat helicopters are retired after 100 missions. 200 is legendary. But the stress of those 200 combat missions had taken a toll. The helicopter's fire control system was not working properly. The fire control system is the computer that aims the weapons. Without it, an Apache cannot fight. Without it, the helicopter is useless. The weapons cannot be aimed. The targeting computer does not work. It becomes a very expensive and very slow-flying machine. The maintenance team at Fort Bliss had spent 3 days trying to fix it. They had checked every connection. They had checked every circuit board. They had run every diagnostic test that existed. They had looked at the manuals. They had called the manufacturer. They had called the Army's helicopter command. No one could find the problem. The best mechanics in the Army were stumped. The senior mechanic's name was Sergeant First Class Tom Henderson. Tom had been fixing helicopters for 23 years. He had never seen a problem like this. The diagnostics said the fire control system was broken. But when he looked at the actual hardware, everything seemed fine. Everything was connected properly. Everything had power. Everything should have worked. But it did not work. The stakes were high. This Apache was scheduled to be deployed to a forward operating base in 3 weeks. Soldiers were counting on this helicopter. Lives depended on this machine working correctly. They could not send it out if the fire control system was broken. Tom was frustrated. His team was frustrated. They had done everything right. They had followed every procedure. They had checked everything twice. And still, they could not find the problem. That was when the phone call came. The call was from General Amanda Cross, the commander of Army Aviation in the western United States. General Cross was calling Tom directly. This was unusual. Generals did not normally call maintenance sergeants. Sergeant Henderson, General Cross said, "I am sending someone to Fort Bliss to help you with that Apache. This person will arrive tomorrow morning. I want you to work with her on this problem. Give her access to the aircraft. Give her access to your team. Whatever she needs." "Yes, ma'am," Tom said. "Who is coming?" There was a pause. "Her name is Captain Sarah Mitchell," General Cross said. "She is retired now, but she has a background that makes her uniquely qualified to help you. She has flown the Apache. She has flown it in combat. She has flown it more than almost anyone else in the Army." "Okay," Tom said. He did not understand. How would a pilot help with mechanical problems? Pilots flew helicopters. They did not fix them. "One more thing, Sergeant," the general said. "This needs to be handled with discretion. I do not want this getting out to the media or anyone else. Just work with Captain Mitchell. Trust her. And I think you will find that she sees things that others do not. The line went dead. Tom thought about this call for the rest of the day. He thought about it that night. He did not sleep well. What did the general mean? How could a pilot help with a mechanical problem? What was special about this Captain Sarah Mitchell? The next morning, Tom was waiting in the hangar when a woman walked in. She was tall, with gray hair and kind eyes. She wore civilian clothes. She carried a small backpack. She looked like she could have been anyone's grandmother. "Sergeant Henderson," she said. "Yes," Tom said. "You must be Captain Mitchell." "Just Sarah is fine," she said. "I'm retired. The rank does not matter anymore." Tom gestured toward the Apache sitting in the hangar. "The fire control system is broken. We cannot figure out why. Everything in the diagnostics says it is broken. But we cannot find the failure." Sarah looked at the Apache. She studied it for a long time. She did not speak. She just looked. "Can I get in it?" she asked finally. "Sure," Tom said. "I will help you up." Tom helped Sarah climb into the Apache. She went to the back seat. The pilot's seat. She sat down. She did not touch anything. She just sat there. For 30 minutes, she sat there. Then she climbed down. "I want to see the diagnostics," she said. Tom took her to his computer. He showed her all the test results. He showed her everything they had checked. He showed her the manual for the fire control system. Sarah looked at everything carefully. Then she said something that changed everything. "You are looking for the wrong problem," Sarah said. Tom looked at her like she had just told him the earth was flat. "What do you mean?" Tom said. "The fire control system is broken. The diagnostics are clear." "The fire control system is not broken," Sarah said. "The fire control system is fine. The problem is somewhere else. But the diagnostics are telling you the fire control system is broken because of where the problem is located." Tom did not understand. "Can you explain?" "Not yet," Sarah said. "Let me sit in the aircraft again. But this time, I want you to watch me. I want you to see what I see." Sarah climbed back into the pilot's seat. This time, Tom climbed in after her and stood where he could watch what she was doing. Sarah moved her hands over the controls. She did not move them quickly. She moved them slowly, deliberately, carefully. She was feeling for something. After a few minutes, Sarah stopped. She pointed to something. "This," she said. Tom looked. He saw a cable. A control cable that ran from the pilot's seat to the flight control system. "That cable," Sarah said, "is not quite right. Look at it carefully." Tom looked at the cable. It looked fine to him. It looked normal. It looked like every other cable in the helicopter. "I do not see anything wrong," Tom said. "Feel it," Sarah said. Tom felt the cable. At first, nothing. But then, as he ran his fingers along it carefully, he felt something. The cable had a slight kink in it. A very slight kink. A kink that you could barely see. A kink that would be almost impossible to notice unless you were looking for it. "This cable is kinked," Sarah said. "Not enough to break it. Not enough to make it obvious. But enough to make it stick. When the cable sticks, the signal gets interrupted. The fire control system thinks the input is broken, so it shuts down. The cable itself is fine. The fire control system is fine. But the cable is not moving smoothly." Tom was amazed. "How did you know?" "Because I flew this helicopter through 200 combat missions," Sarah said simply. "You learn to feel things. You learn to notice the smallest difference in how a machine responds. You learn to know when something is not quite right, even if you cannot explain why." I sat in this pilot's seat and I could feel that something was different. I could not explain it at first. But I knew. And then I found it. Tom looked at the kinked cable. It was such a small thing. Such a tiny imperfection. But it was the problem. So we replaced the cable, Tom said. Yes, Sarah said. You replaced the cable. And then this helicopter will be ready to go. Tom hugged Sarah. He actually hugged her. He did not care that it was not professional. He hugged her because she had just solved a problem that his entire team had been unable to solve. By the end of the day, the cable had been replaced. The fire control system was tested. It worked perfectly. The Apache was ready to fly. The Apache was ready for combat. And all because a woman who had survived 200 combat missions had sat in a pilot's seat and felt what no diagnostic computer could have felt. Sarah Mitchell had not planned to become a helicopter pilot. When she was growing up, there were not many female helicopter pilots in the Army. There were almost no female combat pilots. It was not really an option for women. Or at least, people said it was not an option. But Sarah had always been different. Sarah had grown up in a small town in Montana. Her father had been a mechanic. Her mother had been a nurse. Sarah had wanted to do something bigger. Something more challenging. Something that no one thought she could do. When Sarah was 18 years old, she had joined the Army. The Army had sent her to basic training. She had excelled. She had been the best in her unit. Fast. Strong. Smart. Dedicated. The Army had noticed her. An officer had asked Sarah what she wanted to do. I want to fly, Sarah said. The officer had laughed. Women do not fly attack helicopters. I do, Sarah said. Sarah had pursued pilot training. It had been the hardest thing she had ever done. Flight school for Apache pilots is one of the most demanding training programs in the military. It takes 2 years. The training is dangerous. Pilots crash. People die. But Sarah had not crashed. Sarah had studied every system in the Apache until she understood it better than the engineers who designed it. Sarah had trained until flying was as natural as breathing. And then Sarah had started flying combat missions. 200 combat missions. The number is almost unbelievable. Each mission meant flying into a war zone. Each mission meant being shot at. Each mission meant making split-second decisions that meant the difference between soldiers living or dying. Sarah had been hit by enemy fire 17 times. 17. Her Apache had been damaged 17 times. Each time, she had kept flying. Each time, she had completed her mission. Each time, she had brought her helicopter home. Sarah had received multiple decorations for bravery. She had been recommended for the Distinguished Service Medal. She had been recognized by the Army as one of the best pilots in its history. But Sarah did not talk about that. When she had retired 5 years ago, she had moved to a small town in Texas. She had become a consultant. She had kept to herself. She had not talked about her military service. She had not talked about the 200 combat missions. She had tried to live a quiet life. And then General Cross had called her. The general had not explained why Sarah needed to come to Fort Bliss. The general had just said that her expertise was needed. Sarah had not wanted to go. Sarah wanted to leave the military life behind. But she had gone. Because that was who she was. When the Army called, she answered. And when she sat in that pilot's seat again for the first time in 5 years, something had awakened in her. Her hands had felt the controls. Her mind had understood the machine. She had felt that small imperfection that no diagnostic computer could have found. She had felt it because she had flown through 200 combat missions. Because she had learned to feel the machine the way a musician feels their instrument. Tom Henderson wanted to know everything about Sarah after she solved the problem. He wanted to know about the 200 combat missions. He wanted to know about being shot at. He wanted to know about flying under fire. But Sarah would not talk much about it. It was war, she said simply. People died. My job was to make sure that the soldiers on the ground had the support they needed. I did my job. Tom's team had gathered around Sarah like she was a celebrity. These were mechanics who understood machines. They understood that what Sarah had done was extraordinary. They understood that flying a helicopter through 200 combat missions meant that Sarah understood machines in a way that most people never could. One young mechanic named Rodriguez asked Sarah a question. "Captain," Rodriguez said, "how did you not get killed?" "Luck," Sarah said. "Skill. Good training. Good soldiers with me. All of those things. But mostly luck, right?" Rodriguez asked. Sarah thought about this for a moment. She thought about the 17 times her helicopter had been hit by enemy fire. She thought about the times she had come very close to being killed. She thought about the soldiers she had flown with who had been killed. "No," Sarah said finally. "Not mostly luck. Respect. I respected the machine. I respected the danger. I respected the people counting on me. That respect kept me alive." The next morning, Sarah was preparing to leave Fort Bliss. The Apache had been fixed. The cable had been replaced. The fire control system was working perfectly. Tom brought Sarah to the tarmac to see her off. But before she left, Tom asked her one more question. "Why did you really come here?" Tom asked. "The general said you were retired. You did not have to come. Why did you come?" Sarah looked at the Apache sitting in the distance. "Because the general called," Sarah said. "Because soldiers are counting on that helicopter. Because I could not say no. And because," she paused, "because I missed it." "Missed what?" Tom asked. "Knowing that I was doing something that mattered," Sarah said. "Knowing that my skills were making a difference. Knowing that I was part of something bigger than myself." Sarah turned to Tom. "You do not understand now because you are still doing it. You are still making a difference. But when you retire, when you step away from this work, you will understand. You will miss it. You will miss knowing that what you do matters." Tom drove Sarah to the airport. As Sarah was leaving, she said one more thing. "That cable," she said, "was just kinked. Not broken. Not destroyed. Just kinked. All it needed was someone to notice it. Someone who had flown enough to know what was normal and what was not. Do not underestimate what you know. You have spent 23 years on helicopters. You know them. Trust that knowledge." Sarah left Fort Bliss. She went back to her quiet life. But something had changed. She had been called back to something she loved. She had been needed. She had made a difference. And that made all the difference. 6 months later, Sarah received another call. This one was not from General Cross. It was from a general at the Pentagon. A general she had never spoken to before. "Captain Mitchell," the general said, "I need to ask you something. The fix you made at Fort Bliss for that Apache. That fix became part of the training for mechanics across the Army. Mechanics are now being trained to feel for kinked cables. To recognize the smallest imperfections. Your discovery has already prevented 5 other helicopters from having the same problem." "That is good," Sarah said. "It is more than good," the general said. "It is extraordinary. And I am calling because we need you to do more." "Do more?" Sarah said. "The Apache program is being modernized," the general said. "New systems are being installed. New technology. And we are having problems. The problems are subtle. The problems are things that diagnostics cannot find. But the problems are real. I believe that you are the person who can help us find them. Sarah did not want to do this. Sarah wanted her quiet life back. But she also knew that this was important. She knew that thousands of soldiers depended on these helicopters. She knew that her skills were needed. What would I have to do? Sarah asked. Come to work with our development team, the general said. Help us identify problems. Help us understand what is wrong. Help us make sure that every Apache is perfect before it goes into the field. Sarah closed her eyes. She thought about the 200 combat missions. She thought about flying through enemy fire. She thought about soldiers on the ground who depended on her to bring air support. She thought about how much that had meant to her. Okay, Sarah said. I will do it. Within 2 weeks, Sarah was at a facility near Washington, D.C. She was working with a team of engineers and pilots and mechanics. The team was testing new fire control systems. New targeting systems. New avionics. Everything was state-of-the-art. Everything was the newest technology. And everything had problems. The engineers could not find the problems. The diagnostics said everything was working. But the pilots who sat in the test helicopters said something was not quite right. They said the controls did not feel right. They said the targeting system did not respond the way it should. They said something was off. But they could not explain what. That was where Sarah came in. Sarah would sit in the pilot's seat and fly the helicopters. She would feel the controls. She would feel how the helicopter responded. She would notice the smallest imperfections. And then she would explain what was wrong. The control response was delayed by 0.3 seconds. That seems like nothing. But 0.3 seconds in combat is the difference between life and death. A soldier on the ground is waiting for fire support. That soldier needs the weapons to respond immediately. A delay of 0.3 seconds could cost that soldier their life. Sarah found the problem. A software algorithm was causing the delay. The targeting system was too sensitive. It was picking up vibrations from the helicopter's rotors and interpreting them as targeting adjustments. The system was trying to correct for problems that did not exist. The solution was to add a filter to the software. Sarah found that too. The new avionics system had a design flaw in how it processed information. Under certain circumstances, the system would lose data. The pilots would not know the data was lost because the system did not report the loss. It just quietly failed to include information in its calculations. Sarah found that problem and helped the engineers understand the fix. Over the course of 3 months, Sarah identified 17 separate problems with the new Apache systems. Every single one was something that the diagnostics had missed. Every single one was something that could have caused a problem in combat. Every single one was something that could have gotten soldiers killed. The engineers were amazed. They were humbled. They were grateful. One engineer, a brilliant young woman named Dr. Rachel Kim, asked Sarah how she knew so much. Experience, Sarah said. I flew 200 combat missions. In each mission, I learned something. I learned what felt right and what felt wrong. I learned to notice the smallest changes. I learned that machines are alive in a way. They communicate with you if you listen. If you pay attention. If you respect them. But how can I learn that? Rachel asked. I cannot fly 200 combat missions. No, Sarah said. But you can listen to pilots. You can ask them how things feel. You cannot just rely on numbers and diagnostics. You can remember that there is a human being sitting in that pilot's seat. Remember that what you design has to work perfectly under the most extreme circumstances. Remember that people's lives are depending on it working right. Rachel looked at Sarah with something like awe. You should stay, Rachel said. You should keep working with us. We need you. Sarah thought about this. She thought about her quiet life. She thought about how much this work mattered. She thought about soldiers in the field who would fly these helicopters. She thought about how her expertise could save their lives. "Okay," Sarah said. "I will stay." Sarah stayed at the Pentagon facility for 2 years. She worked with the Apache program. She worked with other helicopter programs. She worked with weapons systems. She worked with any military technology where her unique perspective could help. And with every project, she made a difference. Young engineers started seeking her out. They would ask her questions. They would ask her how she knew things. They would ask her to review their designs. Sarah became a mentor. She became a teacher. She showed a new generation of engineers that you could not just design machines. You had to understand the humans who would use them. You had to think about what it would be like to sit in that pilot's seat under fire. General Cross watched all of this with pride. She had made a call 5 years ago asking Sarah to come to Fort Bliss. That call had started something. That call had brought Sarah back to a life of service. And through Sarah, thousands of soldiers would be safer. Thousands of helicopters would work better. Thousands of lives would be saved because one woman who had survived 200 combat missions had learned to feel what machines were trying to tell her. 2 years after Sarah started working at the Pentagon facility, she received an invitation. It came in an official envelope. She was being invited to a ceremony. An award ceremony. Sarah did not want to go. Sarah did not like ceremonies. Sarah did not like attention. But the general told her she had to go. The general said that her work had been recognized. The general said that she was receiving an award. Sarah went to the ceremony. It was held at the Pentagon. Hundreds of people attended. Military officers. Engineers. Pentagon officials. News media. The Secretary of the Army was there. Sarah sat uncomfortably in her dress uniform. She had pulled it out after not wearing it for years. It still fit. She was still fit. She was still strong. Still capable. Still the same woman who had flown 200 combat missions. When it was time for the awards, the Secretary of the Army came to the podium. "I am here to give an award," the Secretary said. "An award for service above and beyond what is normally expected. An award for a person who has changed how we think about technology. An award for a person who has saved countless lives through her expertise and her dedication." Sarah knew what was coming. She tried not to cringe. "This award goes to Captain Sarah Mitchell," the Secretary said. Captain Mitchell flew 200 combat missions in the Apache helicopter. Captain Mitchell was wounded 17 times. Captain Mitchell received multiple decorations for bravery. Captain Mitchell set records for effectiveness and performance that have not been broken to this day. The audience applauded. Sarah sat there, uncomfortable. But, the Secretary continued, Captain Mitchell's service did not end when she retired. When the Army called her back, Captain Mitchell came. And in the 2 years that she has worked with our development programs, Captain Mitchell has identified problems that our diagnostics could not find. Captain Mitchell has made improvements that will save lives. Captain Mitchell has mentored engineers and pilots and mechanics. Captain Mitchell has shown us all what it means to serve with excellence. The Secretary paused. "Captain Mitchell, please come to the podium." Sarah stood up. She walked to the podium. The audience stood and applauded. The Secretary gave her the award. It was a medal. A medal for service to the Department of Defense. It was a civilian award, but it was significant. It was a recognition of her work. "Thank you, Captain Mitchell," the Secretary said, "for your service. For your expertise. For your willingness to come back when we needed you." Sarah took the medal. She did not know what to say. So she said something simple. "I was honored to serve," Sarah said. "I am honored to continue to serve. And I will continue as long as I am able. The audience applauded again. That night, news of the award spread. It appeared on news websites. It appeared in military publications. The story spread about a woman who had flown 200 combat missions. The story spread about how she had come back to help. The story spread about how her expertise had saved lives. Young women saw the story. They saw a woman who had done something extraordinary. They saw a woman who had been recognized for her service. They saw a woman who mattered. Sarah received emails from young women. They wanted to know how to become helicopter pilots. They wanted to know about military service. They wanted to know if they could do what Sarah had done. Sarah answered every email. She told them it would be hard. She told them it would be dangerous. She told them they would have to be twice as good as anyone else to be accepted. She told them they would have to work harder than they had ever worked in their lives. And she told them it would be worth it. One young woman wrote back to Sarah. Her name was Jessica. She was in basic training. She wanted to be an Apache pilot. She wanted to fly combat missions. She wanted to be like Sarah Mitchell. Sarah wrote back to her. Do not try to be like me, Sarah wrote. Be yourself. Be the best version of yourself. Be excellent. Be dedicated. Respect the machine. Respect the soldiers you fly with. And remember that what you do matters. Every single day, what you do will matter to someone. Do not forget that. Jessica wrote back to Sarah. Thank you, she wrote. I will remember. I will do my best. Sarah saved that email. She kept it in a folder on her computer. Whenever she was tired or frustrated with her work, she would read it. She would remember why she was doing this. She would remember that there were young people out there who wanted to follow in her footsteps. She would remember that her example mattered. The Pentagon facility was renamed. It was called the Mitchell Advanced Rotorcraft Development Center. It was named after Sarah Mitchell. Not because of what she had done in combat. But because of what she was doing now. Because of how she was helping to make aircraft better. Because of how she was mentoring the next generation. Sarah was embarrassed by the honor. But she accepted it. And she worked even harder. 10 years after Sarah had fixed that kinked cable at Fort Bliss, she received a call from Tom Henderson, the mechanic who had been so frustrated with the broken Apache. Tom had stayed in the Army. He was now a master sergeant. He was still fixing helicopters, but now he was training other mechanics. He was teaching them what Sarah had taught him. He was teaching them to feel. He was teaching them to listen to machines. He was teaching them to respect what they worked on. Sarah, Tom said over the phone, I wanted you to know something. One of the helicopters that my team maintains was just returned from a deployment. The pilot reported that there was a problem with one of the flight control cables. A very small problem. A very subtle problem. A problem that a diagnostic might have missed. Did they fix it? Sarah asked. Yes, Tom said. And the reason they found it was because I taught my mechanics what you taught me. To feel. To notice. To respect the machine. My mechanics found that problem because they understood that the smallest imperfection could matter. That is good, Sarah said. No, Tom said. It is more than good. That small problem could have caused the cable to break in flight. If the cable had broken, the helicopter would have crashed. If the helicopter had crashed, the soldiers on board would have died. Because you taught me to feel for a kinked cable, those soldiers are alive. Sarah did not know what to say. You saved their lives, Tom said. And you did not even know they existed. That is the power of what you do. You change things. You make things better. And the good thing spreads out from there like ripples in water. After Tom hung up, Sarah sat thinking about what he had said. She thought about the kinked cable. She thought about the 200 combat missions. She thought about all the work she had done at the Pentagon. She thought about all the lives that had been saved because she had learned to feel what machines were trying to tell her. 15 years after she had started at the Pentagon facility, Sarah retired again. But this time was different. This time, she left behind a legacy. The Mitchell Advanced Rotorcraft Development Center was a world-class facility. It had trained hundreds of engineers. It had improved dozens of aircraft systems. It had prevented countless problems from reaching combat. It had saved lives. Young women were becoming helicopter pilots. Some of them would fly the same helicopters that Sarah had flown. Some of them would face the same dangers that Sarah had faced. Some of them would survive combat missions because the aircraft were better. Because Sarah had helped make them better. At her retirement ceremony, General Cross spoke. Sarah Mitchell joined the Army as a young woman who wanted to fly, the general said. She became one of the best pilots we have ever had. She flew 200 combat missions. She set records that stand to this day. The general paused. But Sarah's real legacy is not the 200 missions. Sarah's legacy is the hundreds of engineers she has mentored. Sarah's legacy is the dozens of aircraft systems she has improved. Sarah's legacy is the thousands of soldiers who have come home safely because their helicopters were better. Sarah's legacy is the young women who are now flying combat missions because they saw what Sarah accomplished and believed they could do it too. The general looked directly at Sarah. You changed the Army, the general said. You changed military aviation. You changed how we think about building and maintaining aircraft. And you changed the lives of everyone who had the privilege of working with you. Sarah retired to a small house in Colorado. She was 72 years old. She had served in the military for almost 50 years. She had given everything to her country. But she did not stop working. Sarah became a consultant. She worked with aircraft manufacturers. She helped companies understand what pilots needed. She helped companies design better machines. She used her expertise to make the world safer. And she answered emails from young women who wanted to become pilots. She answered hundreds of them. She encouraged them. She told them they could do it. She told them to be excellent. She told them that what they did would matter. One day, a young woman named Jessica came to visit Sarah. Jessica was now a captain in the Army. Jessica was a pilot. Jessica had flown 40 combat missions. Jessica had been awarded a medal for bravery. Jessica brought her daughter with her. Her daughter was 6 years old. The girl's name was Sarah. I named her after you, Jessica said. Because you inspired me. Because you showed me that I could do anything I wanted. Because you showed me that being a woman soldier was not a limitation. It was a strength. Sarah looked at the little girl named Sarah. She thought about the future. She thought about what this girl might become. She thought about how her own example had changed one person's life. And that person's example would change other lives. The ripples in water. They spread outward. They touch things you never see. They change things you never know about. But they change things nonetheless. Tell her, Sarah said to Jessica, tell her that she can do anything. Tell her that the world needs strong women. Tell her that service is an honor. Tell her that what you do matters. Jessica smiled. She took her daughter's hand. I will, Jessica said. I will tell her that her namesake taught me that. That evening, Sarah sat on her porch and watched the Colorado sun set. She thought about her life. She thought about the 200 combat missions. She thought about the kinked cable at Fort Bliss. She thought about the work at the Pentagon. She thought about all the people she had helped. She thought about how everything had started with one small thing. Noticing that a cable was not quite right. Feeling something that no machine could feel. Sitting in a pilot's seat and understanding something that no computer could understand. Sarah had survived 200 combat missions because she had learned to feel what machines were trying to tell her. And in helping experts fix what they could not fix, she had shown others how to listen. How to feel. How to respect the complexity and importance of what they worked on. The woman who had flown through hell had become a teacher. And through that teaching, she had helped create a better world. A safer world. A world where soldiers came home. A world where young women could fly helicopters without question. A world where expertise and respect and dedication were valued. All of this had started with one phone call. General Cross calling a retired pilot and asking her to help with a problem. Sarah had said yes. And that yes had changed everything. Not just for her. For thousands of people. For everyone who flew in an Apache helicopter after that day. For everyone who worked in military aviation. For everyone who learned from her example. Sarah Mitchell had survived 200 combat missions. But her real mission had not been flying those missions. Her real mission had been to teach others. To help others. To make the world better. To use her expertise to save lives in every way possible. And in the end, that mission was far more important than any combat mission could ever be. The woman who had survived 200 combat missions had found peace. Not in forgetting what she had done. But in continuing to do what she had always done. To serve. To help. To make things better. One small thing at a time. One kinked cable. One young woman who wanted to fly. One improvement to an aircraft system. One email answered. One young girl named Sarah who would grow up knowing that women could be anything they wanted to be. The ripples spread outward. And the world changed because one woman was willing to touch the controls. To feel what others could not feel. To notice what others could not see. And to teach others to do the same. That was her legacy. And it would continue long after she was gone.